Today I'm going to be making easy summer garden sauce, and I'm using tomatoes that I harvested from my garden. I have some chives, basil, fresh oregano, all from my garden, an avocado, which I bought at the store because we don't have avocado trees in Philadelphia, some corn, Parmesan cheese, sugar, balsamic vinegar, red pepper flakes, sea salt, pepper. And garlic. So right now I have a couple glugs of olive oil in a pan. It's heating up on medium heat. A spoonful of this minced garlic, which makes cooking so much easier because sometimes it's a pain to press garlic and then you have to clean out the garlic press, so this works out really well. While this is starting to simmer, I'm going to chop up my basil. This basil leaf is damaged, so I'm going to get rid of it. When you wash your basil, you want to keep it on the stem. It's so much easier to wash this way. If you take the leaves off, it's just harder to wash. And then I remove the leaves that don't look desirable. So I'm going to chop up the basil. One way to do that is to put it together, roll it up nice and tight, take a nice big knife, and cut it. And it can be a rough cut. One of the things about this summer garden sauce is that all the ingredients are a little rough cut so that when you experience the sauce, you're experiencing the shapes and the textures of all of the fresh vegetables that you use. Okay, I just also cut the chives, not all of the chives. This is a real oniony flavor and I don't want it to overtake the tomatoes. The same with the oregano, the fresh oregano. As I was cutting the fresh oregano, I could smell it. It was wonderful. The garlic in here is starting to sizzle, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the tomatoes into the garlic and oil, stir it around, and I'm going to let them simmer for about 15 minutes, not too long, just enough to start to break down. I might have to raise the heat a little so it really simmers. And I'm going to do a couple of layers of salt. When I layer salt, I don't put too much on, just a sprinkle of salt. And I'll be doing that throughout. And a very little bit of red pepper flakes. I just like a little bit of a bite, nothing to overpower. And then some pepper. And this is just going to simmer for a little bit and I will stir it occasionally. So the tomatoes have been simmering for a little bit. I'm going to add another layer of herbs. I'm going to put in the basil, chives, the fresh oregano, and another little layer of salt. I'm going to stir that up, and these continue to need to break down a little more. As these are breaking down, we're getting a nice yellow color because I had yellow cherry tomatoes. Over here I have some butter that is melted into this skillet. And I'm going to put a handful of kernels that came straight from the cob. I just cut it right off the cob. And these kernels are going to brown up, and I'm actually going to put this on top of the sauce. It's going to add a little extra earthy texture to it when I serve the pasta. So these are just going to brown up here. I put a little butter in there, but I think I'm going to also add a little bit of olive oil. And I have to be careful because they become popcorn. If I let it get too hot, they'll actually start to dance on the skillet. So the corn is not dancing yet, so it needs a little bit more time. And you can see here, the tomatoes have broken down pretty well. So we're on to the next step. I'm going to add one more layer of salt. Little layer of salt. These are slight sprinklings. This isn't a lot. I'm actually going to add it to the corn as well. And then just a little dab of balsamic vinegar. This isn't high quality. It's worth it to get really good balsamic vinegar. I just was out of mine. So I'm going to turn that in, swirl that around, and then add just a little bit of sugar, and that takes out some of the acidity. Mix that up. It's dancing. I can turn off the popcorn, or the kernels rather. I'll remove that from the heat. And now it's going to be time to use the hand mixer. It's a hand blender. I'm going to use this to break up just some, but not all of the tomatoes. So one of the tricks is, I'm not making a lot of sauce, if you tip the pot, you're able to submerge the blender and then it doesn't splatter all over the place. It just needs a couple little spins. Okay. The sauce is a beautiful color. It's a little watery, so we're gonna add some avocado. And then I'm going to blend this, and the avocado is going to thicken the sauce and add a little bit of a creaminess to it. So this is a good way to avoid using any kind of dairy. One of the great things about cooking something like a sauce is that you can make adjustments as you go along. I took the sauce out of this pan, put it back into the container where the fresh tomatoes have been, and I had to add a little more oregano and basil and a touch more sugar. It just needed that. And now I have water boiling in this pot. I'm going to be using calamaritta pasta, which is a nice big shape so that the sauce can go into the actual pasta. And then the corn is finished, and that'll be a topping.